When filming finally started for The Man Who Would Be King in the Atlas Mountains of northern Morocco in January of 1975, director John Huston believed that his pet project for nearly 20 years was now becoming reality. Before he acquired the film rights in October of 1958, he had been an avid fan of Rudyard Kipling's writings, the novella of the same name that he was specifically fond of, having read it first as a 14-year-old. He said that he loved reading Kipling. Kipling writes about a world gone, a geography gone. It's the world of adventure, high honor, and mystery. Based on these valued components, Huston and his longtime secretary, Gladys Hill, adapted and wrote a screenplay based on Kipling's work. Both the screenplay and the movie are surprisingly faithful to its literary source. The story and the movie are developed around the tale of two former British Army officers, Peachy Carnahan and Daniel Dravot. They are dishonest, unprincipled con men. They love adventure. Bottom line, they are scoundrels. The two tell the story's narrator, a journalist, of their bold and daring plan. They intend to find the mythical city of Kafiristan in Afghanistan in hopes of making their ill-gained fortunes. Both the city and the fortune are associated with the campaign of Alexander the Great some 2,000 years earlier. Peachy and Daniel plan to become the first Europeans since the ancient Greeks to penetrate the region and loot it 6 ways from Sunday. They believe they can find a kingdom not yet touched by civilization, which they can easily take over with their weapons, wit, and expertise. The film follows the travels and exploits of these two rogue ex-soldiers, one who is eventually taken for a god and made their king. The advertising tagline of the theater lobby posters summarized the film so very well: adventure in all its glory. John Huston had been planning to make this film since the 1950s. After his huge success in The African Queen in 1951, where Humphrey Bogart won an Oscar for Best Actor, Huston wanted to work again with this leading man. He envisioned pairing Clark Gable with Humphrey Bogart for these two leading roles. He originally had the film slated for his next production after he finished Moby Dick in 1956. He planned to begin principal photography in India in late 1955 into early 1956. Unfortunately, there were some delays in launching the project. Then the deaths of Bogart in 1957 and film producer Mike Todd in 1958, and then Clark Gable in 1960, kind of unraveled Huston's initial setup plans. Slowed but not stopped, the director later came up with other pairings that he thought would be terrific. Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas were approached, as were Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole. In the early 1970s, Huston considered reaching out to the then popular team of Paul Newman and Robert Redford. It was Newman, though, who wisely advised the filmmaker that British actors would be a much better fit for the material. And it was he who actually suggested Caine and Connery specifically for the roles. Caine was so thrilled when he learned that the part had been written for Humphrey Bogart that he told the director, John Huston, he would do the movie before he even read the script. You see, Bogart had been Caine's favorite actor and idol growing up, and both Sean Connery and Michael Caine considered the movie their favorite of all they had ever worked on. The cast included a third Oscar winner, Christopher Plummer. He is the narrator, the journalist, Rudyard Kipling. Plummer revealed that he was a late replacement for Richard Burton. Nonetheless, he too might have been dismissed by producers, except for Sean Connery's insistence that Plummer stay and be on the movie. Connery had even threatened to abandon the production if Plummer was not retained. The producers eventually relented. You see, Caine, Connery, and Plummer were all really close friends, even before making the movie. The only billed female character, Roxanne, was originally slated for Tessa Dahl. Excited for the role, she prepared for the part by losing weight and having her teeth capped. However, at the last minute, John Huston decided to cast someone else whose appearance would be more in keeping with the natives of that region. At a small dinner party for some of the cast and crew, he was asked if he had recast the part yet. When he answered no, all of the heads turned towards Shakira Caine, the wife of Michael Caine. She was of Indian descent, and Huston cast her on the spot immediately. Karum Ben Bohi, who played the high priest, was said to have been at least 100 years old when he made his one and only movie appearance in this film. He was a night watchman at a local olive orchard near the filming location. He was hired after John Huston accidentally met him and told him to come into the set the following day. After he fell asleep a number of times during the filming, it was discovered that he had still kept his night watchman job. Huston ended up explaining to him that he didn't need to keep that job anymore, that the movie company would pay him enough so that he could get a good night's sleep. There was much discussion of India and Afghanistan as being filming locations. However, no portion of the movie was filmed in Asia. This led to many people observing, even complaining about, that the extras didn't look Asian. The 12-week shooting schedule was shot on location in Morocco and in France, with completion work being done at Pinewood Studios in London, where they used 500 locals as extras. The Moroccan government helped cut the production cost by building a 2-mile-long road into the Atlas Mountains for the production crew. After filming was done, the road would remain and be used by the local inhabitants. While on location, both Michael Caine and Sean Connery just became disgusted with the treatment of British Indian actor Shahid Jaffrey, who played the guide Billy Fish. They strongly objected to an assistant director's treatment of him, which included not providing a chair for him to sit in between takes. Finally, Caine had enough and just shouted at the crew, "Get this man a chair." Now, during the filming, Sean Connery got tricked by his longtime friend, Eric Sykes. The story goes that they ended up feeding Sean Connery sheep eyes, and the way they got him to eat them is they had a sheik present them to him, and not wanting to offend the sheik, Sean Connery went ahead and ate the sheep eyes. What he didn't know that his heavily disguised friend, Eric Sykes, was the sheik. They all got a big laugh out of this, but somehow I don't think Sean Connery thought that this was too funny. Michael Caine would reveal that Connery did not like heights and was not fond at all of the final scene in which he had to walk to the middle of the rope bridge. There was a day when they were shooting on the bridge, and Sean turned to John, the director, and said, "Do you think the bridge looks safe?" John looked at him and said, "Sean, the bridge looks just the way it always has. The only difference is that today you're going to be standing in the middle of it." There's available footage on YouTube of Sean Connery performing the fall from the bridge stunt. He falls about 80 feet towards the bottom of this ravine. His fall is broken, however, by a big pile of cardboard boxes and foam rubber pads. The stuntman, Joe Powell, doubled for Sean Connery during this filming, and he performed the actual fall from the bridge. He fell so skillfully, twisting and turning on the way down, and at the very last minute straightening himself out so that he would hit the cardboard boxes and foam rubber pads dead center. Huston, the director, was terribly impressed with this stunt and thought it was probably one of the best stunts that he'd ever seen. By the end of the film, all these two characters have is each other, and even that appears to be fleeting away. The performances have endured, though. It's been called acting royalty. It is as if they were destined to do it. Connery and Caine definitely thought so. Years later, when John Huston was ill and in the hospital, Connery and Caine got themselves some Red Army tunics, and they turned up unannounced at his bedside, saying, "Here we are, Peachy and Danny." Take another look, or maybe even a first-time look, at this fun and adventure-filled movie. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.